Hi folks, and welcome to another review from Class 47 Beta. And as promised, we're here to look at the Bachmann Standard 4MT tank, which I said I was going to review in the next review, in the last review video that I did. Now, there has been a little bit of a backlog with these reviews. It might not seem that way, but there has, because there's been quite a few on the computer documents that I've needed to get edited and uploaded onto the internet, but it's all done now, so this is the last one there is. Now, this model also has a bit of a story to it, just like a couple of the others do. This was brought around the time I had the 8F and the 7F. Originally, I did buy this from S&J Models along with the 7F. However, I ended up only getting the 7F, and then I got an email saying that the standard 4MT tank was basically out of stock, but I only got the email on the day the 7F had arrived. So I had to look about for another one by doing some Google searching, and eventually the search took me to a place called FMR Retail, and they do have a second-hand models page, and it took me to that, and I then noticed this for quite a bargain of £65 if I remember rightly, and it was just too much, so I just had to buy it. Well, it was too much not to pass up, I should say, rather, because I had been wanting to get hold of a standard 4MT tank, and this was the perfect opportunity to get one. Now, this model has been renumbered. Originally it was AT002, now it is AT043, which is the standard 4MT tank that was running during the Somerset and Dorset's, well, the West Somerset Railway's Somerset and Dorset's 50th anniversary gala weekend. Although technically it was AT072 in disguise as AT043, but that was the one that was running. And so then I decided to get a standard 4MT tank and renumber it to that particular one. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is open the box. Now, this is Bachmann's long obsolete polystyrene packaging, because I don't use it anymore. So I'll put the box to one side, and then you have the card insert, which again, like the packaging, is also obsolete, because nowadays you don't get them, and the brief history that's printed on the back of the card is printed on the back of the boxes, and also you don't get the drawing of the locomotive anymore like you do on the back of these card inserts. You can pause that and read it if you want to, I'm not going to stop you. Then you have all the rest of the paperwork that's inside of the box. You have the guarantee, we also have the collector club flyer, which I'm not going to bother with because I've no intention to join the club anytime soon. And then you have the instruction manual, or spares care sheet for the model. Because this model is second hand, so it's good to see that these have been kept, because this is very important that you keep the manuals to the models, because if you need to go back to the instructions at any time and you haven't got them, then you're in for a bit of a nightmare, basically. Then we take out some of the details out of the polystyrene tray. Now, because this is a second-hand model, all the details have already been glued on. What we did get in the box are couplings to add on the front and the back of the loco. But in this case, I'm just going to be adding the one coupling on the back of the loco, not on the front. Then there's two different types of coupling here. They're both NEM couplings, but different, because one of them, as you can see on the right hand side, you can see one has a bit of a dip to it that lifts up slightly where the NEM socket is, and that's a sort of coupling used on the majority of Bachmann's wagons, and it's also been used on the Peaks and the Class 40 models. And then you've got a normal standard NEM coupling. Then we remove the rest of the packaging. We do have a couple of these pieces of foam that look like Watsits that are there for some sort of protection to help hold the model in place. And then we take the model out of the polystyrene tray. So that brings us on to the model itself. Now first of all we'll start with the weight. As we'd expect, this model is very heavy and we need the weight, because if we didn't, this model would not be able to pull anything, let alone a coach. So the weight is there to help provide the traction and so that the model can pull your rolling stock around your layout. Which of course, that's the definition of what a train is, a locomotive pulling things basically. Now we come on to the detail of the model. Now first of all I'll talk about the buffers, which are the oval shaped ones, just like as on the real locomotive, and they're made of plastic. It would have been nice if they'd been made of metal, but the oval shaped buffers that they make are plastic ones. Interestingly though, all except one of these buffers are sprung loaded. Not that I have much care for that though, because you're only going to mess about with the sprung buffers when you're holding the model. You're never going to even touch the sprung buffers any other time. So in that respect they are somewhat pointless, but this model does normally have the sprung buffers, but you know, that's not really a bother for me. I don't really mind if the model has sprung buffers or not, at least it's got some buffers. But what you could do is paint the buffers or rust them up a bit to give it a bit more detail if you wanted. Moving down to the front pony truck of the model, you can just about see that there are some guard irons there in front of the wheel. And that's a nice little bit of detail there. On the front we have the chain link coupling that's glued onto the hook and a vacuum pipe, and on the buffer beam you've got some rivets as well. Normally the chain link coupling and the vacuum pipe you'd have to glue on yourself, but like I said earlier, the details have been added because it's a second hand model. Moving on to the running board, we do have some rivets on it and some separately fitted lamp irons, and you can just see behind this lamp iron, it's like that with the other one on the other side of the lamp iron, not the middle one, that there are some small metal handrails just behind the lamp irons. And that's a really nice little bit of detail because it's just like on the real loco. You do see those handrails behind the lamp irons in real life. Moving on to this part of the running board, we do have some warning signs printed on the front, and you also have some bits of detail which in this case act as some sort of steps. I can't remember what they're called, but basically the crew can climb up onto them and up onto the locomotive should they need to get into any parts of it. And the running board has been captured perfectly because, as in reality, the running board, like many or on all BR standards, lifts up above the frames, so it doesn't have to have any wheel splashes. Moving on to the smoke box door, we have a separately fitted handrail and separately fitted smoke box door darts. The smoke box door itself does not open, but it doesn't have to open. Although when you do get a model that has an opening smoke box door, that is a superb feature, but it doesn't have to open on all of them. And also, of course, you have the running plate on front of the loco, ATO43. And just under the smoke box door darts you have a shed code, which reads 66A. Moving on to the smoke box itself, we have some rivets there, and also, along the side, you have some separately fitted metal handrails. You've also got the outer steam pipes as well, and there's rivets round those as well, and also you have some pipe work as well that's fitted atop of the outer steam pipe and runs just underneath the metal handrail there, and that's a nice bit of detail to have, and just like on the real thing as well, obviously. And we've also got some more detail in front of the side tanks there, along with another warning sign and one of those parts where the crew can climb up onto any part of the loco that they need to get to. Moving on to the cylinders, there are some rivets on them and some lining, which is very nice. And you've got the drain cocks as well. They're not painted, but this is something I did do later, because in reality they are a sort of copper or gold colour. But that's something that you can do yourself, so it's not too much of a problem. It would have been nice if they had been painted, but that's just a little niggle. Then we come on to all the moving parts, being of course the valve gear, the link motion and the side rods. It's all connected up as per what you see on the real loco, and to see all that move on the model, it's just going to be fantastic to see. And also you can see some pipe work there that just runs underneath the side tanks, and you also have a speedometer cable on the rear drive wheel there. Moving on top of the side tanks there, you have the water filler caps, and you've also got some pipework or cabling of some sort that runs on top of the side tanks. Also, alongside this part of the boiler where the firebox is, you can see that there is a separately fitted metal handrail there, which adds to the detail. And also you can just about see that there are some rivets as well on top of the side tanks. Then moving on to the boiler, you have the boiler bands and some more detail, which is pipework, and the dome in the middle of the boiler. We've also got the whistle and the safety valves, of course, that we can't forget, and also we have some pipework as well, just by the whistles. We've also got glazing in most of the cab windows. There are two windows that do not have the glazing in them, but in reality there are at least two windows on the loco that do not have any glazing fitted in them. Moving on to the cab roof, we've got some rivets on the cab and some roof vents that do not open, but they are there and they are moulded on, but they're there and they're nice to have. And also even the cab roof vents themselves have rivets on them, which is nice to see on the model. Now the livery is spot on. They've got the shade of the black correct, and the lining, it's just so stunning, just like as you see it on the real thing. You have the lining on the boilers and the cylinders, you've got the lining on the side tanks and on the bunker as well. And it's not just the detail or the running performance that's important on a model, it's the liveries as well. So kudos to Bachmann there. And of course, being this is a light crest model, we can't leave out the BR light crest itself, which is crisply printed on both the side tanks. Then moving on to the cab, you can see windows just above and underneath the windows there, and you've also got the cab doors, and just at the side of the cab door there you can see a warning sign printed on the side. We've also got the cab steps. You have one where the cab door is, and you've got one at the back where the bunker is, which is not something you see very often on most steam locos, but just like on the real thing, you do have that rear footstep there where the bunker is. And also you have some pipe work that runs underneath the bunker and just behind that rear footstep there. Moving on to the cab interior itself, now there is detail there, but it's not painted. Although this is something you can do yourself, it means that you have to take the body off to do it. In the case of a tender engine, you don't have to do that for obvious reasons, because you can just separate the tender from the loco and just paint the cab interior in the cab, if of course it's a tender loco that doesn't have any painted interior. But on this case of the model it doesn't, but I don't fancy taking the body off just so that I can paint the cab interior. But while it is, well, it might seem like a little bit of a shame that the cab interior is not painted, but it's something that you can do yourself, and it is quite fun to do when you can do it. But it would have been nice if they had painted it though. Moving down to the back of the model, you can see lots of separately fitted handrails there on the bunker, and also you have like that channel on the bunker that you see with the Bully Pacifics on the tender locos. You can see the rear cab windows there. And just alongside the bunker you have that dip, so that in reverse the driver or even the fireman can actually see when going backwards, and that is quite clever that BR had that feature on the real loco, and that's a brilliant feature to see on the model itself. One thing I very nearly left out, we've got the running number on the side of the loco, ATL43. The transfers are by Fox Transfers. I do recommend you get them because they are, in my opinion, one of the best transfers that you can get. Going on to the frames of the chassis, even they are detailed because you have some rivets on them, as you can just about make out there in this photo, and also on the cab footsteps as well in this photo. They are rivets on them. Moving back to the rear of the bunker, you have separately fitted lamp irons and those parts where the crew can climb up onto the bunker, which act as steps. And also, we have a plate printed on top of the lamp iron that tells how many water it can take. So in this case, it can take 2,000 gallons. And just like with the front buffer beam, there are rivets on that, and also, again, that's the same thing with the buffers. The buffers are made of plastic and they're not sprung loaded, except for one of them, as mentioned at the start of the review. As you can see, there's the NEM socket for the coupling to go into, just underneath the buffer beam there. And then we come onto the other side of the loco. Now the detail isn't too much different, but as you can see, the pipework arrangement in this photo is a little bit different to that of the other side. On this side you can see it curves around from the centre footstep and then up and under the side tanks there. Sticking with the pipework, it is interesting to point out that someone has had a go at painting it. Not the best way though, but this is something I've done myself. This is something I later did. I later repainted that pipework myself into a nice gold colour, and I did that because it adds to the detail. Because when you first get the model, the pipework is not painted, it's just moulded in black plastic, and so the painted pipework does look a bit better once it's painted. Just like on the other side, you have the crisply printed light crest there on the side tanks. On the front of the side tanks you have the part where the crew can climb up onto the side tanks themselves, a warning sign and more detail underneath it, which is like a box that has some cables coming out of it. On this side of the loco though, you don't have any pipework underneath the separately fitted handrails there on the side of the smoke box. Then you have the detail on top of the side tanks itself. Now it is a bit different because you don't have any cables on this side running on top of it like on the other side it does. And then last but not least, in terms of the detail of the model, you have the coal load in the bunker, which is not removable, but you can scatter real coal load on top of the coal load that's already in the bunker. And that's something I shall be doing because I have done it on a few occasions, and the real coal load should add a bit of detail as well, because that's something I do tend to do on all steam loco models that I get nowadays. Now we come on to the running performance of the model. And as you can see in these pieces of footage, you can see just how smoothly the model ran when put through its paces on the layout. And this is what we expect from a model straight out of the box that we get that's new. We expect it to run, and we expect it to run smooth as well and not have any problems. And in this case, no problems were encountered with. Now come on to the loaded test run of the standard 4MT tank. And for its first run on the layout, when it came to pulling trains, we had it coupled up to the rake of chocolate and cream and blood encrusted coaches. Being this is a little bit of a mix match rake. So, all in all, it has to be said that the Bachmann Standard 4MT tank is not a perfect model, because one could argue that some various bits on this model could be improved. However, even if this model itself is not a perfect model, that does not stop this model from being a great model, because this model is indeed a fantastic model to have. Disregard the fact of whether it being perfect or not. It still has some great detail parts in it, and it still captures the look of the real standard 4MT tank very well. And also, you can't ignore the fact that this model is a smooth runner, and you can't ignore how much it can pull either. And for that itself, Bachmann still do deserve credit for that. Especially because this is a model that's due to be released again, so maybe some parts of this model will be changing, but it's still a great model to have. And so on that note, we come on to the score of the model. So I will give this model an 8 out of 10, which is a decent score to give a model. This has been Class 47 Peter, signing off with the standard 4MT tank, and I'll see you again soon for the next review that I do. But until then, take care and enjoy yourselves.